Hi guys, welcome to the Liberty Bunker. Corona Recession. The central banks, the large financial institutions are underestimating the recession caused by coronavirus. Let's see what they are saying at the moment. Bank of England drafts action plan to head off coronavirus recession. Mark Carney said the Bank of England is coordinating with the Treasury and international partners to deliver a powerful and timely response to the coronavirus outbreak. As investment bank Goldman Sachs warned the disruption could push the UK to the brink of recession. Carney, the bank's governor, said the economic hit could prove large but would ultimately be temporary, and the bank would take all necessary steps to support the UK economy and financial system. He was speaking less than a fortnight before he hands over to incoming Governor Andrew Bailey. So they're saying this is going to be big, but it's ultimately going to blow over. Let's look further down the article. We'll read from here. The UK is on track for a second consecutive quarter of zero growth from January to March, and output could shrink by minus 0.2% in the second quarter, with the coronavirus disruption responsible, according to Goldman forecast. If the second quarter forecast is correct, the UK will be on the cusp of an official downturn because the technical definition of a recession is two successive quarters of negative growth. So Goldman saying this could be a technical recession. It is definitely going to be at least a technical recession. It's going to be a lot worse than a technical recession. It's going to be a very large downturn in the scale of 2008, in my opinion. The UK is highly exposed to global activity, which we expect to contract in the first quarter. Tourism exports are significant, and the virus is spreading steadily. It's not spreading steadily. Like an economist at Goldman Sachs should know, this isn't a steady spread. This is an exponential growth. There's a big difference between something going up steadily and something going in an exponential curve. It's mad that presumably an economist at Goldman says this virus is spreading steadily. Completely wrong. It's growing. It's parabolic. It's growing exponentially. That's completely the wrong word to use. I can only presume by reading this article that Goldman Sachs are looking to short stocks, so they don't want the market to collapse just yet. They're trying to build their short position, and then they'll make a lot of money off the back of it. That's the only way you can look at this article and it makes any sense what Goldman, what Deutsche Bank are saying. We'll read further down. Meanwhile, analysts at Deutsche Bank have halved their UK growth forecast this year to only 0.5%. So they're saying it's not even going to be a recession. They're saying it's going to be half a percent growth, which is weak. It's not good. It's what we've come to expect with zero interest rate policy and not fixing everything from 2008. But it's not negative, and it's not even that bad. It's going to be a lot worse than that. A post-financial crash low because of the outbreak, and said the Bank of England could respond with two interest rate cuts of 0.25 percentage points by May from the current level of 0.75%. Goldman believes the new Bank of England governor will announce an emergency cut of 0.5 percentage point on March 26. So all of the large, powerful financial institutions have basically priced in this new low in interest rate policy going down to 0.25%, which realistically from 0.75% to 0.25% isn't really going to make a huge amount of difference. I think it's insane that Deutsche Bank is saying it's going to be 0.5% GDP of growth this year. I mean, just the economy has gone off a cliff. You don't need to be an analyst at Goldman to see this. I mean, look what's happening in Italy. In the north of Italy, in the last few days, they've essentially locked down 16 million people in the north of Italy. How can you lock 16 million people from leaving their region and not expect huge financial, economic consequences from that happening? Now, even if the virus didn't hit the UK, and at this point, COVID-19 is essentially endemic in the UK, it's spreading person to person. It doesn't matter even if you stop the flights now, which they're not doing. I think yesterday we had several flights coming in from the quarantine areas of Italy, people coming completely unchecked from Italy. The UK government, the NHS, have lost complete control at this point, which was highly likely to happen anyway. But even if the virus didn't hit the UK, we just look at what's happening around the rest of the world. I mean, we're heavily reliant on imports. We import, we have a trade deficit. We're a country that imports a lot more than we export. Just the supply shocks from things not coming from China. Many businesses rely on products coming from China. So the supply chain effect alone is likely going to push the UK into recession. Over the next, we already have many people now self-isolating. You don't need to see a doctor to self-isolate if you have like flu-like symptoms. The recommendation is from 111, the NHS, the government, is just to self-isolate. How many people are now off work, and how much damage is that doing alone to the economy? That you're talking a significant drop in production just from the amount of people we currently now have off work, whether they have coronavirus or not, because no one's diagnosed them. They're just self-isolating. Schools close. I think it's mad in the UK that the schools are still open. I'll be getting my son up for school shortly after making this video. I think it's insane that the schools are still open at this point. I predict this. I think the schools will probably be closed by next Monday. So this video is made on the 9th of March. I think by 16th of March, I think next Monday, I think the schools will probably close on the 16th. I think next Monday is probably the day they'll choose to close the schools. It's always dangerous making YouTube predictions because more often than not, you will be wrong if you pick a date. But I think this will probably be the last week the schools are open. If not, the government are essentially saying they're no longer trying to even delay the spread of the virus. It's just an endemic virus, the same as the common cold, and just everybody may as well get it, and just your immune system will just have to cope, essentially. I think that may be the policy that the UK government are pursuing. It's difficult to know, really. Without being in the Cobra briefings, you don't really know what they're doing, but they're definitely not stopping the spread of this virus seriously in any way, shape or form, in my opinion. The UK is heavily reliant on the service sector now. In the service sector, you're not really working behind closed doors. You're generally dealing with the public in most cases. Maybe not if it's internet service or mail order type thing, but people going into shops, consumer spending, service sector, getting your hair cut, things like this, restaurants. This is all like service sector. This is the bread and butter of the UK economy. It's not good. We should be a lot more self-sufficient in terms of manufacturing and food production, things like that. But as we are at the moment, we are heavily service sector led. Now, something like coronavirus really attacks the service sector. People will not be going out and spending as much in the shops. They don't want to be exposed to people with the virus. I mean, you look across Europe, many large cities are ghost towns. Haven't really seen that to a huge extent in the UK from what I hear. I don't really like going down to London that much. From what I hear, central London is a lot quieter, but you only need a small percentage of people taking sick days off work, and you'll start seeing that in somewhere as busy as the City of London. Talking about City of London, the UK economy, another core staple of the UK economy is the financial sector. We've seen, I think, last week HSBC sent about 300 people home from work. The UK financial service sector is really the jewel in the crown of the UK economy. It's essentially what keeps us a fairly prosperous nation. The amount of income that generates as we start seeing people going home from work, the City of London closing down, that alone will be a considerable dent in the UK economy. I think sooner or later we're going to start seeing smaller businesses that can't really buffer themselves that well from this virus starting to fold. You're talking things like restaurants, people with probably considerable overheads who, you need a few, 5-10% of people start choosing not to go out to eat at restaurants, and that is going to have a severe impact on smaller businesses like restaurants, like family business, starting to fold. And be interesting to see if the UK government chooses to support those sort of people or not. That's a very controversial decision to make. It's not something that I really want to point to in this video. But just judging by everything, the supply chain shocks, how service sector reliant we are, relying on the City of London, this recession could be very, very large. I think there's no reason why we couldn't be looking at a year-on-year decline of 5%. Now, the central bank is obviously going to print a lot of money. There's going to be a lot of QE off the back of this. They've said between the central bank and the government, they want large fiscal support, that they want government spending to increase dramatically. We're in a particularly weak position going into a recession. Interest rates are already near zero. Okay, you're dropping them from 0.75% down to 0.225%. How much productivity that will really generate? Not much. You're going from nearly zero to almost down completely to zero. They're going to print a lot of money, so money printing creates inflation, and if you can hide the inflation from showing up in GDP figures, you can cook the books and make it look like you're getting some GDP growth. But I think they're only really going to produce inflation. They'll definitely lie about the GDP figures. So say GDP drops 5%, they'll print a lot of money, and if they can get 4% of inflation, it only looks like the economy's contracted by 1%, but that's the standard ruse they do in every recession. What's interesting is just no one's calling this out. I think it's amazing that Deutsche Bank saying this is just going to be 0.5%, or not even 0.5% contraction. They're saying it's going to be weak growth, 0.5 percentage point of growth. I can only assume that both Goldman and Deutsche Bank are looking to heavily short this, and they don't want the market falling just yet. They want to wait until their short position is fully built up, and then they can come out and just say, yeah, you know what, this thing's going to fall apart, and they'll make a lot of money off the back of that. I mean, central banks, the mainstream medias, are contrarian indicators. Generally in life, if you just do the opposite of what Mark Carney and the Bank of England tell you to do, you just do the opposite of what the mainstream media is saying is working, do the opposite of what Goldman Sachs says as well, you probably do okay. It's a contrarian indicator. When the Bank of England says one thing, you want to ask yourself, why are they telling you this, and should I maybe do the opposite? Because obviously, the central bank, Mark Carney, shouldn't be politicized, but he is. In the last 20 years, all central banks, pretty much, at least in the West anyway, have become heavily politicized. Mark Carney doesn't want to be responsible for saying this is going to be bad and then it being a self-fulfilling prophecy. So rather than do that, rather than risk telling the truth and people actually listen to it and then the prophecy becomes true in a roundabout way, they'd rather just lie to your face. They're saying, okay, this is going to be a shock, but it's going to be temporary. It's going to be a lot more than a shock. It's going to be a lot more than a shock, in my opinion. I'd love to know your thoughts and opinions on this one. I mean, people that had their eyes open before the last big recession in 07, 08, Northern Rock essentially needed support from the Bank of England in September 2007. It took a year. It was exactly 1 year, 1 day from Northern Rock going to the Bank of England for financial support. It was 1 year, 1 day, and then Lehman Brothers went bankrupt. So you generally have, at the time when Northern Rock was in trouble, people said it's silly, people were queuing up to get their money. There's essentially a run on the bank. I think it was the first run on a UK bank in something like 200 years. People said that was silly. The central bankers, the Goldmans of the world were coming out saying, this is just an isolated shock. Northern Rock were, just the way they were financing their debt, it was just unique to them. There was no wider systemic problem. And then one year, 1 day later, Lehman went bankrupt, one of the biggest banks in the world. So be prepared. I mean, this is probably going to take less than a year because that situation rolled out over time. And we're already, we're really nearly 5 months into this coronavirus situation anyway. So we should start expecting to see the large repercussions from this soon. I just think it's mad that no one's calling this out. I mean, no one wants to be the person that says a recession's coming and then be the bad guy. But it's just mad, no one from these serious financial institutions is saying it. That they're lying. Even when they say this virus is spreading steadily, that's a complete lie. It's spreading exponentially. That's a complete lie. So my tips to people that, if you're pricing in this recession happening, I mean, just basic steps you can take before any recession. Try not to take out any new debt. Any old debts you have, try them, pay them down. If you're looking at upgrading your phone, upgrading your car, maybe not choose to do this at the time. If it's going to overextend you, if you're watching this video and you're sitting in a bath of $100 bills, you don't need to take this sort of advice. It's probably not going to affect you that much. If you do have an investment portfolio, maybe it's the time to balance it. I mean, I myself, I've got a self-invest pension, and that's sitting at cash at the moment. I'm quite lucky that is actually sitting at cash. I've been thinking for a while where to put what funds to invest that in. I'm sitting in a pretty good position at the moment because although it's sitting in pounds, it'd probably be better if it was sitting in dollars, but I don't really have that option. Just essentially waiting for this thing to completely roll out, let the recession, let the chips fall where they fall, and then maybe 6 months down the road, look at trying to invest in some Asian funds, start putting the money back into Asia. People say, I won't go into it. Anyway, other points of recession, is always good to have a little bit gold and a little bit silver. People watching this videos for a long time know I recommend holding some gold, some silver, and just do a recession analysis on your life. Is your job particularly prone to recession? Some jobs are more than others. So just try and balance your life. Expect a very, very large recession to be coming at this point. Goldman Sachs, Bank of England aren't going to tell you that, but just use your common sense. If the UK government chooses to do tactics like we've seen in Italy, essentially, lock down a large region to try and contain or at least delay the spread of the virus, That's going to have huge economic consequences. Already priced in. We're going to start seeing the supply chain shocks, stuff coming from Europe, stuff coming from China. That's going to start affecting the UK economy very soon. Service sector is going to be hit very hard. We're already seeing the effects in the UK financial sector as London is appearing to be a ghost town. Some of the large financial institutions even sending people home. So let me know your thoughts and opinions on this one. How big is this recession going to be? What sort of negative GDP growth are you expecting, or are you a Goldman bull? And do you think this is going to be fine, or even maybe a Deutsche Bank bull? They seem to be most bullish. Are you just keeping your money in the FTSE and seeing where it goes? I think it's going to be quite a big one. It's going to be a very, very significant one. And unfortunately, there's not much the central bank can really do about it besides printing money, which affects the poor quite negatively, but it's actually quite a benefit for the rich. There's no surprise why they print money, because it's just a transfer of wealth from the poor to the rich, which is the standard thing that any central bank can do, essentially move money from poor people to rich people. Is essentially the core role of the central bank. That's just my thoughts and opinions for today. Expect a large recession. No one's really talking about it, but it is not far away now. We're probably in recession at this point anyway, just not technically on paper, in my opinion. Love to know your thoughts and opinions on this one. Thanks for watching. Good luck and Godspeed, and I'll see you in the next video.